super glad that y'all are here today. We have some new content this morning, so we're excited about sharing that with you. My name's Deb Evans, and I am one of the lead coaches here at Tailored. And joining me are several others from our Tailored team. We've got Jordan Lyons joining us. He is in Germany, and he's going to be co-leading with me this morning. And I'm really excited about him being here because he just literally did this fundraising trip last summer for 3 weeks. So he's got a lot of good nuggets and stuff to share with you today. And then Lindsay is our client relations manager. She's in Michigan running the chat and the Q&A. And Kavina is in Bangkok, where it's super late for her. So Kavina, we're thankful that you're here to run the slides for us. We are really looking forward to this next hour because we're going to cover a lot of different things. How about like updating your message and how to increase funding from your current newsletter list? Important things for you to consider when you're connecting with churches, creating a timeline and plans for fundraising over the summer, and implementing a follow-up strategy. So important. But first, before we get to all that, I want to ask you a question. Do you keep telling people that you're underfunded, but you're getting no response? You know you need to do something different, and this summer seems like a great time for fundraising. So if this is you, I want to really encourage you to connect with one of our Tailored coaches. When you work with a Tailored coach, almost 100% of the people that you invite into new partnerships are going to say yes. So if that's something that sounds really good to you, we'd love to connect you with one of our coaches. His name's Benny, and he'll just talk with you for a few minutes and see if coaching is right for you. Just click on the chat that Lindsay's going to put in the, the link. Just click on the link that's in the chat. Lindsay's going to put it in there, and then you can find a time that works for you. We also want to let you know that throughout the webinar, we want to hear from you. So at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see the chat button, which hopefully you're already familiar with. This is where we want you to tell us who you are, where you're calling from, any other comments that you want to share with us throughout the call. But again, make sure that you click that drop-down arrow and select everyone so that everybody can see your comments. And the other button that I want to draw your attention to is the Q&A button. So if at any time you've got a question, please put it in this box. So comments go in the chat. Questions go in the Q&A. So this is a live webinar. We love to learn from you as well. We are going to learn from each other. So ask as many questions as you want and even make some suggestions if you've got some. We're going to do our best to get to all of your questions either live, or Lindsay may even answer some of them via the Q&A box. So we'll be giving you also some poll questions throughout the webinar just to get your feedback around your experience and what your goals are. And then lastly, I want to let you know that the slides for this webinar are going to be shared with everyone on the call in a follow-up email. All right, let's get started with updating your message. So there's a lot that goes into planning a trip to your passport country. You've got to purchase plane tickets, line up your church visits, vacations, time with your family and friends, who's going to keep the dog while you're away, you know, all of those things and more. We want to encourage you to step out of all of those details for just a minute and think through one very important question that's going to actually shape your entire trip. Ready? What is the purpose of this trip? Huge. What's the purpose? Are you fundraising? Are you visiting partners? Are you visiting family and friends? Something else? Once we've answered this question, then we can create a plan to reach our goals. So if you've spent any time with us at all, you know that at our core, we believe that fundraising is ministry. So we're going to assume that all of you are going to be meeting with and ministering to current partners, new potential partners, churches, and groups. So getting there and all the details that surround the planning of that trip are super important, but equally important is what you're actually going to be communicating. So before you begin reconnecting with your partners or approaching new people, you need to think about communicating what has happened and what's happening now. So I'm going to list some questions, and it might be helpful for you to write them down. Of course, the slides are going to come to you as well, so the questions are going to be on there too. But as you work through updating your messaging, we would encourage you to work through these questions. Lindsay's going to also put them in the chat. So first of all, what has God done? What's God done since you've been there, or in this last term of service, or in this last year? Are there any statistics that you can share? Better yet, what stories can you share? People relate to stories. So if you can tell a story, all the better. Another question, how has your mission and vision changed over the years? Because likely it's not the same as when you got there. So how has that changed? And then what are you asking God to do through your ministry in the next year or next term of service? For example, are you asking God to raise money to build a community center? Or in this next term, are you offering English classes? Or are you starting a feeding program? What's your vision for this next term? What do you want to see God do as a result of these new initiatives? Finally, you want to ask, what difference would doing this make? That's really the biggest question of all, right? It's really the most important thing, is what change is going to happen in people's lives? How is this going to be transformational? What impact is this going to have? So now that you know what you're sharing, think next, who's your audience and where are you going to be sharing? Lots of possibilities here. You could be upfront in churches. You could be behind the scenes in the mission board, or both. You could be speaking with individuals, whether that's current partners, previous partners, new potential partners, and then Sunday school classes and small groups. Next question, we're asking you a lot of questions to ask yourself, but I think they're so good to work through. What's the purpose of each of these meetings? What are your goals here? Is it financial? Like, are you going to make a financial ask here? Is it just to create awareness for the ministry or create awareness for the opportunity? Or are you simply getting together to get to know somebody better, to fellowship, hang out, and just encourage them? Next, you want to ask yourself, is it a current partner who maybe needs a report, an impact report for what their giving has done? Maybe you want to ask that current partner for an increase. Or is this a new potential partner who needs the entire messaging from calling all the way through? So knowing your audience and knowing what your goals are, and then taking the time to tailor your message appropriately, is going to really help meet them where they are and bless them. And guess what? It's also going to help you manage your expectations and reach your goals.
Absolutely. These questions are really important, because you're going to hear throughout this message that we are encouraging you to be very intentional. And one way we do that is through segmenting. We've worked with a lot of experienced fundraisers over the years, and their primary concern is that they don't have enough contacts. But once we connect, we usually discover you have a whole list of contacts that you haven't thought of intentionally maximizing, and that's your newsletter list. So this brings us to our first poll question. How many people are on your newsletter list? 100, 240 to 250, 250 or 250 to 499, 500 to 750, or 749 or 750 and over? Let us know.
What do you think, Jordan?
I think it's going to be number 2.
Me too.
250 to 499. I think that's what we're going to see. As the poll comes in, when you think, actually, let's wait for the poll and see what the answers are. Okay, so most of you have 100 to 249. And then our next one is 250 to 499, and then above from there. Awesome. So with that list of names in mind, think about how many of them are currently partnering with you. Typically, when we ask this question, you might identify 20 to 40 people from that list who are your current financial partners. If that's the case for you, that means we've automatically identified dozens of people that you could talk to about a financial partnership, if not hundreds, especially for you over 500. And what a great group to start with. These people who are already connected to the ministry and who have already shown interest in hearing about what is going on. So that's where we want to start. And we want to start by segmenting the names of your newsletter list into 4 groups. Segment A are your current partners. These are the people that we already know are interested in financial partnership, but there's still more we can invite them to do. The first thing we can invite them to do is consider increasing their giving. If someone has partnered with you for at least a year, it is perfectly acceptable to show them your gratitude for their partnership and to ask them to consider increasing their partnership for the coming year. Another way that they can help is by connecting you with their friends and family. A great way to do this is by hosting a get-together in person or even virtually. But not everyone's cut out to be a host, and that's okay. So even a simple introduction through email can be helpful. This does not have to be a large group. It can be one or even two other people. Make sure, though, that they understand that it's not the number that matters, but the level of interest is high. We'd much rather have one very interested person than 10 people who just showed up to be warm bodies in the meeting. And having a succinct message helps advocates share it with others. Right, segment B. These are the people who have given in the past, either one time or ongoing. This is a great group to connect with because they've already shown interest in a financial partnership at some point. The greatest indicator of someone's inclination to give is if they've given in the past. I'm going to repeat that again. The greatest indicator of someone's inclination is to give is that they've given in the past. Some may have not been aware that they could partner monthly, so they just gave a one-time gift. Whereas others who did not partner may have stopped giving due to a card error or simply were not followed up with. Some of them might even had a difficulty going on, causing them to have to stop their partnership. But time has passed and the difficult circumstances may have passed as well. Whatever the situation, it could be a good time to check back in and invite them to consider an ongoing monthly or annual partnership. Segment C is everyone else on the list who has not financially partnered in any capacity, but you would like to ask them to consider it. Even if you've reached out before and they said no, it can be worth reaching out to them again if it's at least been a year or a year has passed. It's likely that their circumstances have changed as well. And segment D, the fourth category, covers the people who you aren't ready to ask, likely because you don't really know who they are. If you've been part of speaking at churches and having strangers sign up, there might be people on your list who you don't know at all. So with this group, it's time to start building that relationship. Reach out to them, let them know you're visiting the area. And while you're there, you'd love to connect, either in person or through video chat, to get to know them better and share personal update of what God is doing through your ministry.
Absolutely. And the reason that we suggest that you segment your newsletter list is because, like I mentioned before, your communication needs to be tailored to each group. So with all of the segments, you want to start by sending an email or a physical letter, if you can do that, that reminds them of the needs of your area of service and the great and awesome work that God's doing there. And we're going to share an example letter with you after the webinar through the email, and it's a really good letter. So look for that. With segment A, your current partners, you could say something like, "Thank you for your partnership in bringing the hope of Christ to the lost in Guatemala. I'd like for you to pray about increasing your partnership for the coming year and also helping us find new partners through your family, friends, and church." With segment B, the people that are past partners, you could say, "Thank you for your partnership in bringing the hope of Christ to the lost in Europe. I'd like for you to consider partnering again for the coming year." And then with segment C, people who haven't given in the past, but who might be interested in a partnership now, you can say, "Thank you for your interest in what God is doing in Southeast Asia. I'd like for you to pray about becoming part of the work in Asia through a prayer and financial partnership." Excuse me, I had a cold. With segment D, the people that you need to strengthen a relationship with, you'll want to say, "Thank you for your interest in what God's doing in Los Angeles. I'd like to get together to give you a personal update on the ministry and to spend time getting to know you and your family." However, I do want to add that if you get connected with people from segment D and they bring up finances, go ahead and talk about it because they've opened the door to having that conversation, likely because God's moving in their hearts to consider a partnership. So go ahead and share the information with them and ask if they'd be interested in considering a partnership. Don't be so focused on not talking about finances that you miss an opportunity to give them an opportunity to give when they're asking to do that.
Absolutely.
And then a day or two after your letters arrive, if at all possible, you want to start calling people or at least email or texting to see if they've received the letter and if they're interested in meeting. And this is my pet peeve. Don't say, "Hey, when can we meet?" Ask if they're interested in meeting because they may not be, and that's okay. So again, be careful not to assume and just say, "Hey, when can we meet?" An important part of securing a meeting is the follow-up. If anybody's been with us for a long period of time, you know we're super big on follow-up. So ideally, you want to be following up with those that you haven't heard from or who haven't made a firm decision every 3 days. It can be over the phone, through a text, an email, a Facebook, any other messaging app. You want to cycle through all the different options that you have, but try to reach out every 3 days to communicate the urgency of a response. Don't just sit back and expect them to do the work for you. So to help you with that, we're going to be giving everybody a flow chart that our clients have found very successful in securing meetings and also following up after. And it's going to be in the email that Lindsay's going to send you after the webinar.
So we're going to shift into talking about churches, but let's do a quick poll on that. How have you connected with pastors in the past? You can choose any of them, definitely more than one. It's been Facebook, through email, phone call, text, physical letter, or in person. What do you think people are going to say?
I'm going to think that they're going to say email.
Okay.
What do you think?
I don't know. I like to think Facebook. I like to think through Facebook Messenger specifically and email. I'll be curious to see how many people do a phone call though.
I think usually people do an email first, followed up with a phone call. I don't know. Okay. We'll see what they say.
All right. Email is our top one at 85, then followed up by phone call. Great job. So you reach out
to in person is the next one.
Hold on. Oh, in yes, person. I missed that one. That's right.
That's great. That's awesome.
Good job.
Yeah. Cool. You owe me some ice cream, by the way, because I won.
Okay, fair enough, but I'll eat it before I give it to you. All right, but when you reach out to a church, the main thing we want you to do is make it as personal as possible, because you are likely not the only missionary coming home this summer. Start by finding out who is the best person to contact. And then if at all possible, call them. And 82% of you are already knocking it out of the park. So great job. This could be, of course, through Zoom, WhatsApp, FaceTime, or any other app that allows calls. Another option is Line 2, and this app allows for international calls and unlimited texting for only $16 a month. And Lindsay, she's already posted the link into the chat. Then follow up by emailing the pastor, letting them know that you tried calling, that you'd like to visit the church this summer, and then share wherever your request is. So here are several options you might want to think about requesting. First, sharing with the church congregation during one or all of their services. You could request to put up a table in the foyer with ministry info like your brochures, your cards, your newsletter sign-up list, that kind of stuff. You could also ask to be connected with groups like Sunday school classes, prayer groups, or other small groups. However, keep in mind, though, that a lot of small groups take a break over the summer, so this may limit your options or may make scheduling difficult. However, though, if the pastor is willing to connect you, having them send an email introducing you and the ministry and then having you follow up right away is the best way to do that. You absolutely can reach out directly, but having that personal reference from a pastor goes a really long way. If you do get a chance to share with a small group, we recommend having a response card for each person to fill out. This is a great thing to have at every seat, and we even recommend that it has an option for people to mark, "I'm not interested in partnership at this time." The idea is that you're getting a response from every person and you know exactly what action to take in following up. There might be some churches that are still not meeting in person, and that's okay, or people who are not comfortable worshiping in person this summer. So ask if you can use a Google form response card in conjunction with your hard copy if you are doing it in person as well. You may want an opportunity to speak to the missions committee about a new or ongoing or an increased financial partnership or their consideration in a one-time gift. If you weren't able to attend our webinar on building church partnerships, Lindsay's going to add the link to the webinar in the chat box right now. Thank you, Lindsay. Another thing you can ask is to be included on the prayer request list if they have a prayer group or a prayer chain. This is a great way to raise awareness around the ministry and its needs, and it also keeps the church connected.
Those are some great tips, really great tips. All right, so let's talk about next creating your pre-trip plan. So what do you need to do before the trip happens? Lots of stuff. So it's important to begin setting up our fundraising plans now, because we all know how crazy it gets once the summer hits. And we also know how busy other people are. Like Jordan said, how little time they have over the summer. So we want to start creating our plans and arranging those meetings before we visit those different locations where our financial partners live. And if you haven't been taking notes so far, I want to encourage you to begin, because we're actually going to walk through what you need to do and when you need to do it. So open up notes on your phone or grab a pen and paper so you can begin writing out your timeline. So remember at the beginning, when we asked, what's the purpose of this trip? What are your priorities? Whether it's fundraising, family time, vacation, whatever it is, we want to keep this in mind as we walk through creating a plan. So like I said, Jordan was home last summer for 3 weeks fundraising in the state. So I want for him to share a bit about his experience. Can you do that for us, Jordan?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if your plan is to raise funds while you're there, it's really important to ask yourself how much you're wanting to raise within the 8+ weeks that you have. How much are you wanting to raise in monthly partnerships and or even one-time gifts? So go ahead and write that number down on your notes that you're taking. Now, with that number, think through what that is going to look like for you. So let's say you have 2 weeks with the grandparents and a week of vacation, and you have 8 weeks total, you're already down to 5 weeks. How could this process potentially impact your fundraising goals and plans for the summer? It's really important to realize that 4 to 8 weeks is not a lot of time. So you need to be intentional with it. A lot of tension, a lot of angst can be mitigated by planning these meetings ahead of time. So here's an example of what a trip could look like. And this is actually what my family schedule looked like this last July when we went back to the US. Now, we only had 3 weeks, and one of those weeks was going to be vacation, but we made it work for us. And in order to make it work for us, we had to do a lot of group meetings. So when you look at the schedule, you'll see the names written out. But the longer blocks, I just want to kind of paint the picture for you. The longer blocks on this slide and the next slide were all big group meetings. Okay, and in our big group meetings, we utilized that time to share what the Father was doing. A lot of these people were our current partners. We wanted a place to hug their necks. We wanted a place to share and thank them for what the Father was doing. The smaller blocks were meetings that we had with individuals and couples. Because for some of them, like with our segmenting, right, they were our A partners. And so we wanted to really dive into some more specifics of what the ministry, what our ministry could look like. You can go ahead and skip to move to the next slide. And so that first week was a lot of group meetings. Our next week was a lot of more individual meetings. You can absolutely divide your time up between partners and new potential partners. So those smaller meetings can be where you invite people to partnership. You can't quite see it here, but even for my wife and I, so if you're married and you guys feel comfortable with it, you can even split up meetings. So my wife and I would do some meetings with people that she was really invested in, and I did meetings with people that I was really invested in. So feel free to make this time work for you. The point again with this and all that we're talking and sharing with you is that intentional planning is going to be your friend.
Jordan's all about intentionality, and I love that. I think that's great. That is super that you had a very successful trip and you met your goals. So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to be asking you more questions later too, but it leads us to a poll question for everyone. So Jordan has you write that number down. So how much in additional monthly partnerships do you want to raise? Is it under $500? Is it between $500 and $999? Is it between $1,000 and $1,999? I feel like I'm on the Price is Right. Or is it over $2,000? You know, when they say,
can I do like one above?
This showcase is, yeah. All right.
Did I win?
So, did I win anything? No. So if you need to do more work on your budget before you know what that number is, I highly recommend that you make time for that this very week. This is a super important goal to set, not just for you to know, but for you to share with your partners and your potential partners. All right, let's see what everybody said. Wow, you guys, a lot of money, $1,000 to $2,000.
Yep.
That's a significant amount of money. So lots of planning needs to go into this, but this is very doable. If the average gift in America today is $100 a month, that's between 10 and 20 people. So you're probably going to need to reach out to twice that number of people. So that's just a kind of general rule of thumb. Okay. So in addition, when you're sharing with your potential partners or your current partners, you could share that financial goal in a newsletter. You could share it in an email, or when you're in a personal meeting with them by saying, we're looking to raise an additional $1,000 a month in monthly partnerships this summer. And again, please don't tie it to a deficit. Don't say, hey, to get us out of the red, to get us out of our deficit, we're so behind. No, what impact is going to be unlocked with this new $1,000 a month partnerships? So make sure you attach it to impact. You might also have goals in addition to specific dollar amounts. You could be looking to find 10 new partners, or add 30 new people to your newsletter list, or maybe adding 2 new churches to your team. All right, the next several things to write down are dates. Stay with me here. Start with the date that's 3 weeks before you arrive. This is when you need to start calling, texting, or email people to set up meetings. The next date that you want to write down is 4 weeks before you arrive. This is when people need to receive a personal letter or email from you asking if they'd be interested in meeting while you're in town to hear about the ministry and consider a partnership. Now take note that this is when it needs to be in their hands or in their inboxes. So if you're mailing letters, which is recommended because it's more personal, then write down the date that you need to get them in the mailbox. And remember, somebody local can print those and mail those for you. So find those people who are great advocates for you, who have spiritual gifts that want to be used, people that are gifts of service. Find those people who are willing to help, because a physical letter is going to make a much better impression. Or if you can't find someone like that, there's plenty of professional services that you can hire to print and mail them for you. A couple that Lindsay is putting in the chat box are prayerletters.com. And there's another one called handwrite.io. Both of those are great services. Thanks, Lindsay, for putting them in there. The next date that you need to write down is when you need to start working on this letter or email. Okay, some of us can sit down and just like write it out and send it the same day, but most of us are going to take several days to complete it. So put a realistic date that allows you the time that you need to do it well. And what I mean by doing it well, this is just my pet peeve, please use Grammarly or have someone check your grammar. Please, please, please spell check, do all of those things and make sure the letter looks good. So do take the time to make sure that it's proofed. No excuses there because there's Grammarly. And then make sure you get it sent in the mail on time. And take into account your schedule. If you know that the week that it needs to be sent out is a really full week for you, then you may need to write it 2 to 3 weeks in advance when you know that you have more time. All right, there's one more thing that needs to happen before people receive that fundraising letter, and that is to send out a general newsletter. So some of you may have already done this, but it's important that you send out, hey, we're coming back for a visit. One of those kind of newsletters that announces the dates that you're going to be around. And if you can, even better yet, would even be the locations. You also want to make sure that you're expressing gratitude. And like I said before, continuing to connect people that the impact is the important thing. What impact is the ministry having? What is God doing? For example, we're so thankful for your continued interest and partnership in sharing the hope of Christ with refugees in Greece. Okay. We want to stop and take some questions right now. Do you guys have specific questions around timeline or any other questions that you might have? Go ahead and put them in the chat box if you've got some.
I'm not seeing any questions in the chat box or the Q&A at this point.
Okie dokie. Did I say chat box? I meant Q&A.
You did, but that's okay.
Oh, I'm breaking my own rules. Stop me. Put your questions in the Q&A box. Okay. All right, let's go on then.
All right. So I want to take a quick minute to talk about networking. Nigel, you forgot to suggest praying first. Amen. That is very important to pray before you do this. So let's talk about networking for a minute. For those of you who have already thought through your newsletter list and know for sure that you're going to have to make new connections, then you may need to utilize your network. Like with segmenting, your friends are the A people, right? Are your current partners. Why would we start there? Because these people are already a part of your team. They are invested in what the Father is doing in the ministry in your city. So definitely reach out to them and ask if they can help connect you with people in their network who share a passion for the work that you're a part of. Here are 4 potential groups for you to think through and to get connected to. You've got family, you've got their friends, their small groups. This could be Bible study, this could be home group, this could be a golfing group, a mummies group, whatever, any kind of small groups that they're involved in. And of course, churches. If you're not connected to that church and they're involved in a church, feel free to ask them to advocate for you. Another person you could ask is your home church pastor. Is that person part of a pastor's group where they could introduce you to some other people? Are there other churches in the area that they could connect you to? And finally, if you don't know who else to ask, you can always cold call. There's likely several churches in the area that you'll be visiting. And don't discount the small ones. Though they are small, they are very mighty. So
I'm going to interrupt you for just a second because I think this question is pertinent. Kate asks, do you think Zoom meetings are still effective or possible? It's going to be hard for me to make a long trip back home and meet with everyone.
Yes.
I was going to say 1, 2, 3, Jordan, let's go. Yes.
Yes. 100%. I think if anything that the pandemic has taught us is that people are okay doing this. Now, we're all tired of it, right? So we will advocate, we will say that, but there's 46 of you or 40 of you in this group already, and this is a Zoom context. Absolutely. In-person visits are always recommended. If that's possible, face-to-face, in-person visits are lovely, but absolutely utilize people, especially if you're doing multiple states or multiple countries. I'm not assuming everybody's from the US, but if you've got multiple countries, feel free, put them in a group, put them on your schedule and make a plan to connect with them. Do you have anything else that you would add, Deb?
Yeah, I was just going to say individual Zoom meetings are great. Group Zoom meetings work too. And you can use a group response card. You can use a response card and put it in the chat. It can go to a Google form and people could, sign up that way. So you can do all different kinds of things. And if people are experiencing Zoom fatigue, the phone works great too. Yep. So you can always call people. So, but yeah, Zoom is an awesome option.
Yeah. The only thing I would say, if you put people in groups, if they are connected somehow together, that's always great, right? You can put strangers in a group, no problem. But if they're connected and say they've got a home group leader or something, feel free to shoot the home group leader an email, just kind of stating who you are and the purpose of the meeting, so that they know when they're coming into this meeting that you're fundraising, that you're eventually going to ask them to consider partnering with you. That would just be one of the things, a personal experience that I would encourage you to do, is just make sure people know what meeting they're getting involved in. Are there any other questions?
Not yet. Let's keep going.
All right. So you've now created and executed an absolute amazing plan for your visit. You're back on your field now. You've unpacked, the laundry's done. You've gotten over jet lag. Now what? Well, now comes the follow-up work from this trip. We want to encourage you to create a post-trip communication plan. If you've been with us for any length of time, you know that follow-up is just as integral as the planning and executing of the trip. Following up with people can be very intimidating. We know, we know. We often feel that people will be upset if we reach out. We feel that people are that we're bugging people, or it might ruin our friendship. Generally, for most of us, we just feel awkward doing it. That's okay. But why do we do it? Because they need it. Think about it. People are busy. Though fundraising may be in your top 3 things to do, it's not necessarily in the top 3 things for your current partners or your potential partners. And it really helps our mindset if we view follow-up as simply helping people do what they have said they will do or what they want to do. When speaking about what she learned from following up with people during the fundraising process, one of our clients said something really profound. People want to help me, but they need me to help them help me. People want to help me, but we need to help them help me. They need me to help them help me. One of the best things you can do to help a potential partner is to be sure to end your meetings with an accurate expectation that you will follow up with them. This gives them a clear path in how and when to sign up, which helps them do what they want to do. It helps you, and it also helps you by saving you time and hopefully reducing your own stress and your own anxiety. So, got another poll question. How often do you follow up with your potential partners? Every 3 days, weekly, every 2 weeks, once a month, or you don't do it at all? I hope it's not never. I hope there's some. It's okay. We'll help you. We can absolutely help you if it's a never. What do you think it's going to be, Deb?
I'm going to say weekly. What do you think?
Okay. I'm going to go every 2 weeks. So I'm curious what the results will be.
I would say weekly or monthly, actually.
Okay.
I don't know. Let's see.
Let's see. All right, weekly and once a month. There you go, Deb. I will give you your ice cream, 16% for every 2 weeks. But great job with your guest there, Deb. So there's not going to be any doubt here and any surprise that we recommend that you follow up with your potential partners every 3 days. I'm sorry, but every 3 days for 2 weeks. So my once a week people, you're getting there. My once a month people, I want to encourage you to do more frequently. But if that seems to be too soon for you, you could do it every 4 to 5 days for 3 weeks. Remember earlier when Deb said that we were going to share a flow chart with you? Here is the part of the show. Here is the part of the chart for what following up with people after a meeting could look like. We'll be sharing the slides with everyone so you can review this, or better yet, print it out. What I do want to point out here is that there are 3 places where it talks about following up with people every 3 days. If you ever talk to Deb as your coach, she will tell you that you are driving the bus. You are the driver of your bus. You are in charge of this whole process. And so following up with people every 3 days shows intentionality. And like Deb said earlier, it shows urgency. So when we follow up, do we have enough time to go through that? You've got this. Okay, we do have enough time. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to set up the meeting. This is what you guys are planning to do. When you, if they do want to meet with you and you've met with them, ask them to sign up in the meeting. That saves them time, it saves you time. So if you have a link, if you have a paper card, if you have an electronic version of way to sign up, feel free to have that with you and then send them a thank you note. Okay, if you've asked them to sign up in the meeting and they say, no, we can't sign up right now for whatever reason, that's okay. But establish that follow-up to let them know that you will be reaching out to them. And again, what's the number that we recommend? Every 3 days. Okay. If you invite them to partner and they say no, that is totally okay. That is not a personal slight on us. What that means is that the Lord has not put them on our team, and that is okay. If they haven't reached out to you or they haven't given you were you going to say something, Deb?
I was going to say, that's really not going to happen, Jordan. People aren't going to say no in the meeting because they know what they're coming. If you've done a good job of establishing that you're looking for a financial partnership ahead of time, when you get in the meeting, so this is, you've had the meeting, you've invited them to partner, they're going to either say yes, or they may say, yes, but I need to talk to my husband or wife about that, or yes, I need to pray about that, or yes, I'm not sure. I want a partner, but I'm not sure I can do that amount. So they're going to say yes. And if they say yes to that amount that you've asked them, if you ask for a specific amount, then go ahead and ask them to sign up. If they say, hey, I need to think about it or pray about it or talk to somebody, make sure that you establish that follow-up. The no, I mean, you're really not going to get no's, honestly. You're not. You may get it, no, I don't want to sign up right now, but you're not going to get a no.
Not this amount, and that's okay too. And also to Deb's point, if they say, I've got to talk to, my husband, my wife, if they are married, try your best to get that other person in the meeting as well, even if you don't know that person. Because like Deb said, they're likely going to say yes. So you're going to be in their lives somehow. You're going to be connected to them somehow. But also, most of us who are married do not make financial decisions like that without the involvement of the other person. And so you want that person to know what they're saying yes to. So again, they said they don't know, follow that, establish that follow-up with them every 3 days, okay? In addition to that, send that thank you note, because we always want to show gratitude. Our partners are not our financial ATMs. Our partners are not the people that we just get money from and move on. They are part of this ministry, and we want to honor them that way. So again, you're doing every 3 days, right? If they haven't messaged you, haven't reached out in the first attempt, do another attempt, and then try to follow up with them. You can create a script for it, or better yet, we can help you as coaches to create that script. Did they sign up? Did they answer? Sorry. Then ask them to sign up over the phone, send them that link, and then send them a thank you note. If they haven't, again, leave a message to establish every 3 days for 2 weeks. If after 2 weeks they are not responding, it's okay to move them back to the bottom of your list. And then maybe later on in a year or so, try to follow up with them if you want. Deb, do you have any other thoughts about this?
Just a couple of things. We are not saying that this is the only way to do it. This is our recommendation. Right. We also know that there are different cultural contexts too. Some people are coming from a very indirect culture where this approach might be just a little bit too aggressive. So we want to encourage you just to think through. I think the bottom line is intentionality and you leading through the process. So whatever that looks like for you and your cultural context is really the best thing. But just lead the process. Don't expect them to do it because, like Jordan said, it's not probably even on their top 10 list of things to do. They're just really, really busy people. So you're trying to help them be as clear as possible and make it as easy as possible for them to sign up and follow through with the commitment that they've made. So, but in coaching, if you sign up with a coach, we'll work with you. We're not gonna be like, this is how it has to be. We are gonna work with you. We are going to help you to craft these things with wording that is specific to your audience. But even think about it too, so if you follow up every 3 days with somebody for 2 weeks, it takes you 2 weeks to follow through with that person. Your list may be like this long. If you do it once a month, it's gonna take you, if it takes you 5 times to follow up, you're not going to finish following up with that person for 5 months. That's a long time to have somebody on your list. Now, so it just depends on, there's a lot of factors that it depends on, right? So we're going to help you and work with you in your context and walk through what it could look like for you and really help you customize things to make it as personal and as tailored as possible. So great stuff. Okay. So this all sounds really good, right? But what do you say to a potential partner that says, so, hey, yes, I do want to partner with you, but I need to speak with my spouse, so I'm going to get back to you. So they've given you an answer. So it's kind of awkward, right? Like, how do you set the expectation of follow-up when they said that they're going to get back to you? So I always start by acknowledging their answer. I say, something like, thank you so much. Your partnership is so encouraging to me. That's wonderful. And then I say, but I know you're busy. Would it be okay if I followed up with you on Tuesday? Is that enough time? And then if they say, sure, then I'll ask them, would a text be okay? So they then know when to expect to hear from you. And they also know how you'll be reaching out, which again is super helpful for them and for you. So in a perfect world, people are going to just sign up right at the end of our meetings on their own, because they know that that's going to be helpful for them and for us. But let's face it, we do not live in a perfect world and people don't know that. So we want to encourage you to keep leading them through the process all the way through the end to signing up. We want to help people make signing up as easy as possible. So instead of just like saying, oh, great, so you'd love to partner with me, fantastic, here's the information, and expecting them to do it on their own, because guess what happens with that? They put it on their desk and then the next day's mail goes on top of it, and a mail goes on top of it, and they're totally forgetting about it and not signing up because they've forgotten it. And we're over here going, wait, if they said they wanted to sign up, but they're not signing up, does that mean I've offended them? How do I, like there's all these things that go through our minds. So basically, instead of leaving that with them, just go ahead and be bold and say, you know what, would it be okay if we take the next few minutes and just walk through the process of signing up right now? That way I can track my progress right away, and I can also make sure that everything gets entered into the system correctly. If they don't sign up right away, it's okay to send people links. It's actually, you should send people links in your communication. That's always recommended, but remember, it's never the silver bullet here. So the bottom line is, if you want to be fully funded, you are going to have to lead people all the way through the process by following up with them. So Jordan, I know you have a story that you shared with me about somebody that you just followed up with recently. Can you share that with everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is well, I think this is an example of the idea that sending the link isn't the silver bullet, that follow-up is still required. So the story came out of last month. This particular partner has been partnering with us for several years. And I received an email from my organization saying that her card had expired, or a financial partnership had stopped due to her card being expired. So I reached out to her, thanking her for her partnership, for her and her husband's partnership, and connecting it to the impact of what it has done in Europe. She responded the same day, explained what had happened and that she would sign back up by the next day. Perfect. Job is done, right? Nope. 2 days had gone by and she hadn't signed up yet. No problem. I have a plan. So I messaged her. Again, 2 days had passed and I messaged her again. She apologized for not signing up, and within a few minutes, I received a notification that she had signed up. But what's more is that this opened up a conversation for us to connect again. Again, this has been a partner that we'd followed up with, that we've been partnering with for many years. We have an established relationship. We connect fairly regularly, but this gave us another opportunity to connect and see how they're doing. And now she and her husband are planning a trip to come visit us later this year. Will that be your case? No, it doesn't necessarily mean it. The point of this is that following up with people is crucial, and it's a way to deepen your relationship with your partners or your future partners.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, what questions do you guys have at the moment?
I got a question from Julia. Her question, I'm sure, is true for a lot of people right now. It says, my ministry expenses have gone up a great deal. Haven't all expenses. She used to mobilize short-term teams and medical teams, and they would absorb part of their costs, but this is no longer the case. They have smaller teams now, and they're traveling to places where they all have relationships with nationals and are training in 4 fields and trauma healing. So flights are a lot higher than they used to be. Can you comment about this, and how do we communicate this additional need?
Awesome. Jordan, I'm going to start to you, because remember when we were working on your launch funds and we came up with a plan of how to specifically tackle each one of those, and flights were one of those. You want to speak to that?
Yeah. Flights were one of those. We say this through all of our webinars. If we coach you, you're going to hear us talking about this. As much as possible, we need to be connecting everything to impact. And that's not a sales pitch. That is because what the Father is doing is that important. And so everything we do, we want to connect to impact. And so for us, flights and stuff like that, it's been a long time, but we use the language similar to, this allows us to get to the people. This allows us to help, so our specific ministry is member care. So this allows us to get to the people and to provide the emotional care to people in Europe. Right. And so for you, connecting what your specific ministry is doing, the flights allow us to provide the medical care and to share and to share what the impact is. That is one way that I would encourage that.
Absolutely. Always talk about impact. because it's what difference is it going to, it's the bottom line of is these additional funds, what difference is it going to make in somebody's life? What additional programs does it provide? Or what are the cost, what is this money going toward? And then unlocking that impact. So for you with these trips that you're taking, who are you seeing? Whose lives are being changed? What are you doing? What's the strategy? If it's trauma healing and training, share a story about what that need is, the need for trauma training. We always say the hero is only as good as the villain is bad. So share the need for that trauma training, and then say, in order to make that possible, we need to raise $1,000 for flights to get there. Would you give $500 toward that, so that people who need emotional health and healing can have that support that they need through a sharing the light of the gospel with them? Something like that. Anytime you can share a story too and make it real, like these are the real people who are here experiencing this. Let's do this together. What can we do together? Remember to take the focus off of you too. It's not just like helping you do the work, but it's let's do this work together. All right. What other questions?
Here's another one before we save some for later. Eric says, what if we've not done follow-up well in the past? There are people I have met with and I've had no answer from them. Should I reach back out? For example, if the meetings were 2 months ago.
Tomorrow is a new day with no mistakes in it. That's from Marilla and Anne of Green Gables. This is not from the Bible. It is from Marilla and Anne of Green Gables. Yes, reach out. I think it's the enemy who gets in our minds and, you're a failure. You didn't do this, blah, 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 blah. What is the truth? What is the truth? Focus on the truth and walk in it. You lead these people through the process. And if they say no, or there's still no answer, then maybe you need to put them at the bottom of your list again. But we've also found that reaching out to people that last time, that fifth or final time, saying, this is the last time that we'll be reaching out to you, that provides a whole lot of urgency. Jordan, you have a story about that too, don't you?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I had a partner that said no. A year ago, I reached out. Oh, no, said no 3 years ago. I reached back out to her. This was last year. I reached back out to her last year and did 2 weeks worth of follow-up. So I'm going to say probably around the 4th or 5th time, I mentioned, hey, thank you so much for your time, with really limited responses, like, hey, this is the last time, something along the lines of this, this is the last time I'm going to reach out to you, but I would still love the opportunity to talk with you, about what the Father is doing with missionaries in Europe. Would you be interested in hearing more? Let me know, or reach out to me, or here's my number. Can't quite remember the exact message, but because I'd said, hey, this is the last time I'm going to reach out to you, or something there along those lines, she messaged me pretty quickly. It was like, hey, I'm so sorry, I'm a school teacher, and anytime you message me, it's during my lunch break or during class time during the week. And I was like, oh, thank you so much for letting me know. Can I call you on Saturday? And now she partners with us. And so being intentional with people, again, it's really important to you. So just letting them know that it's important, that being a partner, being your partner, or partnering with the ministry that the Father is doing is vital.
Awesome. That's a great story. I love the story. All right. We'll stay on the line and take as many questions as people have after the webinar. But right now, I want to kind of shift up focus a little bit and do a little bit of reflection. Can we reflect on what we've experienced today? Please share in the chat, what is something in this webinar that's been helpful for you? And as I mentioned before, some of you might be thinking, this is super helpful, but I need some help implementing these ideas and reaching my goals. So again, when you work with a tailored coach, almost 100% of those people that you invite come into a new partnership with you. So if that's something that sounds good, we really want to connect you with Benny, one of our other coaches, to set up a chat. So Lindsay's going to put that link in the chat, but also we want to let you know that if the cost is something that's concerning to you, we want to offer to defer your first payment for 60 days. So that means, it's really cool, that you'll probably most likely raise all of the cost of coaching by the time that first payment is due. So when you schedule a meeting with Benny, just mention webinar discount in that scheduling form, and we'd love to offer that to you. All right, let's check out the chat and let's see what people are saying about what they've learned today. So, all right, following up in different ways every 3 days. Every 3 days. The flow chart was helpful. I'm so glad that was helpful. It has another half to it too that we'll be sharing with you.
Let's see, segmenting a newsletter list. That's a good one. That's always helpful for me, because then I don't have to feel like I have to reach out to everybody in one go. I can actually really tailor what I'm doing to each to individuals. Awesome.
Mm-hmm. I love connecting gratitude with vision is powerful, and the importance of connecting everything to impact. Very, very, very important. That's awesome, you guys. Yeah, I'm sorry, Susan. You wish you'd seen this a few months ago. Well, no better time like the present to get going.
Exactly.
And if you need help, we're here for you.
I love that people are taking away following up with people. I think that's probably one. It's like we get the pre-work, we get the meetings, but it's that we don't get funded, we don't get partners, we don't get to be involved in people's lives if we don't follow up with them. We don't get to have that blessing of having a partner joining with us if we don't follow up with them. So I really appreciate the people that was meaningful to.
Mm-hmm. Also, talking about the other goals, not just the financial goals, was helpful for Becky. And then setting a fundraising goal and creating a plan to reach it, says Eric. That's fantastic.
Vicky asks, how far ahead to start making meetings? You will get the slides, but we want to call people at, what did we say, 3 weeks before we leave, start emailing them 4 weeks before we leave. And if you're sending a written letter, plan ahead for when you actually need to write the letter and how long it needs to reach their mailboxes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, awesome. Thanks everyone so much for sharing all of those things. Okay, and don't forget to schedule your meeting with Benny. Lindsay, if you want to put that link again in there, since it might have gotten buried with everything. Don't forget that if you are concerned about the cost, we can defer that first payment for 60 days. And honestly, you will raise, if you work hard, you will raise the money that covers the cost of coaching in 2 months. You should be able to do that. So when you schedule that meeting with him, mention the webinar discount in the scheduling form. Okay, so we also want to invite you to our next month's webinar. It's going to be on July 21st, and the topic is how to fundraise with millennials and Gen Z. So we're going to send you a link to register in today's follow-up email. And Jordan and I are both going to stay on to answer more questions, so you can just keep putting those questions in the Q&A box. But if you guys need to sign off right now, if you need to go, feel free to do that. It's been awesome being with you, and we hope that you're walking away with some really valuable tips on how to maximize your summer fundraising opportunities. So thank you guys for joining us, and we hope you have a great day. And anybody else who wants to stay on and chat, we're here.
Thanks, you guys. Nigel and Helen have a question. They said, what do we mean by veteran missionaries here? They're in their 70s, and some partners are either returning or even passing away. Are potential partners even interested in partnering with oldies? And I say absolutely, but I'll let you guys expand.
Yes, absolutely. Veteran missionaries, we mean our experienced missionaries, missionaries who are not doing this, not raising funds for the first time, but people who have been on the field, who are experienced. And yes, I had a lovely couple a couple of years ago who were retired, and they decided, hey, we are going to go be dorm parents in Cameroon. And people got on board because they were sacrificing their retirement. It's like people love when they see people being obedient to God's calling in their lives. And it's encouraging, it's super encouraging that, you know, even when you think this is my time that I should be like laying out on the beach or hanging out with my grandchildren, all these wonderful things that you could be doing with your time, and you're sacrificing that to go minister to other people. Absolutely powerful calling. So yes, that's my feedback.
Yep, I would just say don't let that fear, don't let the enemy dig that worm in your ear, that little earworm saying, hey, this isn't it. This isn't, you know, your ministry isn't worth it. The Father has called you, and he'll provide for you.
Amen. Amen to that.
What a great line to end on. I don't think we have any other questions, guys.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks you guys so much for joining us. We really enjoyed it, and we hope to see you in our July webinar. Oh, link for the next webinar.